Um, let's see, Ron,
Yes.
Carrie,
Aye.
Nelson, Dave Durfee, Dave Fredrickson, Amy,
Aye. Dave Fredrickson's there.
Here,
Dave-
but
Dave
I don't
Frederickson.
think you can hear me.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Dave
Yeah,
Fredrickson.
but you can't hear me. Yeah,
We
can
can-
hear you, Dave.
now,
I don't think you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Testing. Okay.
Yes, we can
Thank
hear-
you.
okay, we have Dave Fredrickson. We don't have Dave Durfee or Nelson. Is that correct?
Durfee's there.
Okay, Durfee, Dave, are you there?
He was.
It's showing that he's here. He says he's
Okay.
muted.
All right. The next, Leon Johnson.
Unless he's here with a phone number, I don't see him.
Okay, Ed Letourneau.
Here.
Jackie.
I'm here.
Okay, so we're missing a few, but that's who we have. Is Richard there to take notes?
Yes, I'm
here.
Okay, very good. All right, why don't we start, and because I know we've got a number of people that want to make public comments, but Jim, do you want to go right down to the superintendent's report and hopefully answer some of those things?
You would have to amend, the board would have to amend the agenda to do so.
Okay, it's been suggested that we amend the agenda to go to the superintendent's report first. Hopefully that'll answer some of the questions of those people that are online for public comments. We will then go back to public comments to see if there are any further questions. Does anybody have a problem with that?
So moved.
If not,
Second.
That was Ron.
very good.
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. So we'll move on then to the superintendent's report. After that, we'll move to public comments. Very good. Jim, you're on.
I'm sorry, Tim, this is Amy.
Yeah.
I have many questions as well, and I'm wondering how those should fit in before public comment in conjunction with Jim's comments.
Well, I think hopefully some of those questions will be answered during Jim's comments. If they're not, we'll go to public comments and you can ask them.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is the circuit, I guess, is really loaded up. I called and they have over 30 people that are on there. This just seemed the best way to move forward. You'll get plenty of chance, Amy, to ask your questions, though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
And I don't object to taking questions at the end. I am not
Okay.
going to give my full report. This is going to be partial of it. So I want to address fall athletics. I asked our athletic director, Ashley Holt, Vice Principal Christopher Bonds, Shannon Tatro, who is our trainer, Shannon Tatro, who is our school nurse, and Becca Swat, who is our trainer, to meet and review the BPA guidelines and advise me on the plausibility of having fall sports. So based on the information provided by the BPA and the AOE, feel it is possible to offer a fall season at Mount Anthony under the guidelines provided. We will offer soccer, football, cross country, possibly field hockey if there's enough students to go out for it, and golf. What we can't offer is volleyball because it is played indoors and the guidelines do not allow us to do that. We looked at, you should understand that most of our volleyball games are played in the Berkshire League in Massachusetts, and their sports guidance does not align with Vermont's sport guidance. So to look to play volleyball in Vermont, which would have to be outdoors, would necessitate us buying a minimum of $8,000 equipment. That's not the stumbling block to playing volleyball outdoors. The stumbling block is where we would have to go. We'd have to go to Burlington and north, so a 6-hour round trip to continue volleyball. So it's not I can't endorse that we would play volleyball. And the other is, let me switch to another document so I can, the other involves cheerleading. Fall chair to the list that is not running. The state canceled game day spirit, and with no spectators allowed, sideline cheer is not an option. And our Mill River and BFA Fairfax have already canceled, and our cheer coach has concerns about it moving forward. So other than fall cheer and volleyball, we'd like to move forward with all sports. We need to understand the VPA guidelines is not calling for games at this time. That will be when the governor issues that we can move into phase 3 and then games can begin, but this will allow our student athletes to condition and practice. And if football is ever allowed, it will look very different under the guidelines. It is a 7-on-7 game, basically with no line position players, and it is a form of touch football without tackle and piles. So, very different. How long we will be in this phase 1, phase 2 mode under state guidelines, not our guidelines, before we can actually have a game is hard to predict. But I appreciate the value of our student athletes participating in sports, and the athletic director and I are committed, and the principal, who I also consulted with, are committed to making fall sports happen in the image that the VPA will allow. And that's.
Do you want to take questions on sports now, Jim?
I'll take questions from the committee, and then those members in the audience who want to see. I'm going to open up the chat. This is how and you can put, if you want to speak, put your name in the chat. I've opened up the chat. You'll see it down the bottom of your screen. And then I can unmute your mic by the list that is in the chat. So questions from board members at this time?
Amy?
Jim, I think that's great. That's really good news. Can you comment, can academic and interest clubs have the same capability to meet outside? Outside seems to be the name of the game. And I
believe in fairness and equity, Amy, and absolutely, I hope that those clubs can continue at least as the weather permits, as we can, but what we are operating first remotely. So if those are remote or, I'm committed to working with those clubs and the principals, because it is such an important part of of our students' experience, and it holds a lifetime of memories, and it does for me personally. So that's, I believe in it, and we're going to work to try and make it happen.
That's great.
Everyone should understand it's not going to look exactly like what it did, and I will take guidance from those advisors, just like I put a group together to look at the VPA guidance and recommend how this would work. I'm going to ask, club advisors the same in music and band, chorus. How can we make that work? What does it look like? What do we need to do to make it work?
Great.
Very good. Are there other board members that have questions for Jim concerning sports or activities, the general area? If not, we can move on to the next topic.
Well, why don't we ask if there's any members from the audience who want to put a question in the chat, and then we can call, if I don't see a name, I'm going to assume there isn't anyone who wants to speak at this time.
I have a question. This is Angela Bevan regarding sports.
Yep.
So
Angela, for Richard's purpose, our recording, could you say your name and your residence, please?
Absolutely. Angela Bevan, and I live in Bennington.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is particularly in my situation regarding sports and the middle school. I have a son who attends Sacred Heart, and we will not have sports and would like to join forces with the middle school if the middle school will be having sports. So I just want to put that on the radar for soccer, particularly. That's our only fall sport.
I'm sorry, was your question will there be sports at the middle school?
Correct. Was this just a high school? I'm sorry.
The VPA guidance, it was just for the high school at this point.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim, could you clarify that a little bit more? I thought we were talking MAU wide here.
It's Mount Anthony will offer soccer for varsity JV and middle school soccer too. Sorry. So it is for middle school. The recommendation from the committee is middle school soccer, middle school football, middle school cross country, middle school field hockey if enough go out, and so those sports for the middle school would be soccer, football, cross country, and possibly field hockey.
And I think Angela's question was because Sacred Heart is not having sports and she is a Bennington resident, will her middle schooler be able to participate in sports with the MAU middle school?
They'll be able to participate as they've always been able to participate, correct? So I don't see why they would have the ability to.
No, they haven't unless there was not a sport offered.
All right.
So I just wanted to make sure I had sent an email and
I don't
I'll
have
just, I guess, keep an eye on when tryouts, et cetera, are so we can send that to our middle schoolers or 7th and 8th graders. Thank you.
Let me suggest that excuse me for interrupting here, but let me suggest
Leon Johnson has a question. He's on my phone.
Yeah, but wait a minute. On this question of middle schoolers, let's
have to get further
postpone an answer and let Jim do some research on this and get back to you on that question.
I will.
Are you comfortable with that, Jim? I don't want to make a snap decision without giving time.
We don't have the information to answer that accurately right now.
Right.
Out from schools outside. I didn't hear that part of the question. Sorry.
Okay, are there any other questions concerning the sports program from people outside the board?
So I see some questions in the chat feature, Tim.
Okay.
So, is it? So I can read the questions and I'll just answer them.
Okay, hold on. I'll find the number.
Jackie, if he wants to phone in, the number is right on top of the agenda. It says call in and the number 929-205-6099.
That was a little bit too quick. 929-0.
205-6099. And you can tell him if he's got the agenda, it's printed right on the top of the agenda.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Jackie, he also needs the identity number. I just had to do that to get on, but he'll need the identity number, which is it's on the agenda sheet.
You can't find the agenda. What's the identity number?
Okay, the number is 948-0689-3629.
Okay. Could you mute me for a minute?
I'm going to mute you, Jackie. Okay, I'm going to, Tim, if it's all right with you, I'm going to read some of the questions on the chat and answer this. Okay.
Good. That makes sense.
Is it a superintendent's decision or will the board have to vote to allow fall sports at the MAU? This is the superintendent's decision to allow for sports. The board votes the budget, supplies the money. They've already voted to approve whether we just like whether we open school on a snow day or not, superintendent's decision. So, Adam, I hope that, Richard, can you see the chat so you can see who's asking the questions as I'm reading that?
No, I've got I can't.
All right. And I'm looking for Adam. Adam, I'm going to unmute you.
Jim, that's okay. I can just take the questions. I'm not sure I need the names.
Adam, can you hear
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did that answer your question, Adam?
It absolutely did. Thank you.
Okay. Next question from Cheryl. Are we going to have spectators? No, we are not going to have spectators. The feeling was that we're not comfortable allowing spectator home games for these reasons. Screening, we would have to do a health screening for everyone who is entering the building, entering the facility. Equity, how are we going to split up the 150 allowed tickets between families, home fans, visitors, and students? Exposure, we don't want to risk infecting a student athlete, coach, or game management staff with home and away fan bases. We are going to look into live streaming games, but my advisory at this time is we're not going to allow spectators. As we get to some of our smaller sports, if we actually get into games, we do have time to look at that. I'm looking for Cheryl's microphone so I can. Okay, Cheryl, I'm unmuting you. Or did you hear my response, Cheryl?
Yes, I can.
All right, so I will continue to look at that as the guidance changes. It really, from what I'm seeing, it's going to be the end of September before we have games, if we have them. So that guidance may change, but for those reasons, we're not going to have spectators right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ed Letourneau, the limitations are set by the state, correct? That's a question. They may not be clear. Yes, we're going by the Vermont Principals Association regulates sports in the state of Vermont, so it's their guidance that we are using, and in consulting with the Vermont Department of Health and the Agency of Education. So it's state guidance that we are following by. That good, Ed?
Move on.
Okay. Sheila, is MAU is deeming sports for safe? How will non-sports activities, clubs, student governance be handled? So, Sheila, I'll get your mic going. Sheila, I don't see you in the list.
I'm here, Jim.
Oh, okay. So your mic wasn't muted. That's why I didn't see it.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't have that guidance, but you heard my statement that I am committed to making as much of that happen as possible because what a critical part of a student's high school, middle school time that is. So
Right. Well, I guess my question is then why isn't that already formulated if football is?
Because the VPA gave that guidance. We got the VPA does not give us any guidance on the other activities. So that's coming from other agencies. So once we have clear guidance on that, we will bring it. So the VPA only addressed athletics, and that's the group that I put together to look at that guidance. And if we don't have something clearer from the states, then we will do our own. Is that
Okay,
good?
move on.
Yep, thanks.
Carrie Bond. Carrie, your mic's on if you want to just read your own question there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, because it was actually a member of the public brought this up to me, if the kids are all going to be learning from home, it's going to be difficult for some kids who normally would just stay after school and attend practice to get to practice or to get to tryouts. And so I'm just wondering if there's any plan to provide busing or if parents should try to figure out carpooling.
So it's a great question. So I have a meeting with the transportation provider tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and this is on my list of questions. Like, I'm familiar with some regional schools that do like an after-school sports loop that it may not be the regular drop-off route that students would get, but it may, get them to the center of their town to make it or a couple of drop-offs in our other town. Because I am, concerned about the equity pace in our middle schoolers and our high school. And if we're not running, where this could cost additional money is, it seems like we're operating remote, right? So we're not using our buses, but the buses are in food service, and we are going to be bringing some students into school soon after September 8th, if we can. We want to bring certain populations, and the freshmen into the the high school, and if not full time, but the buses will be deployed elsewhere. But my question to the Dufour Transportation will be, what can we provide as far as a sports after sports bus? The problem will be, Carrie, one of the challenges will be not all the sports are going to end at the same time. And then if I have students congregating, waiting for that bus, and am I, practicing physical distancing, and do I have staff available to make sure that they are, so that we don't assume that liability? But so the answer right now is no, there will not be busing. There hasn't been for the practices that go far, that have taken place. Like football is already doing conditioning practices. We allowed that to happen this summer after we already studied, because I had hoped that we would get to this point that we would allow some form of sports, and I was concerned that if we didn't allow conditioning to go on, that the injury rate would increase. But we are going to look at it, but I can't promise that it's going to happen.
Okay.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat right now.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next topic then, Jim. I know we've got a lot to cover.
And I'll keep an eye on the chat, Tim, if there's anybody that, if the sports question comes up again, we'll move on.
Good. It is, and the board feels the same way. So I think we can move on unless there's another, why don't we move on? Jim?
Yep, I'm here. So the next,
Okay.
I guess what we should ask them, are there any other public comments? We concentrated on sports, but are there any other public comments on any other topic? I'll pause for a minute and see if anybody puts anything in the chat.
Okay, Jim?
I'm Ron from the school board. And I have a question about children with learning disabilities who are to be homeschooled by single parents, one a male and one a female. And they have children that they're having real problems with. Is there any kind of a program where they can get to school and have something within the classroom, or a monitor or somebody that can watch over them the whole day and help them with their learning?
So I was going to address some of that in my superintendent's report, but we are kind of on my superintendent's report, so I will tell you that what we're doing, Ron, right now is we're identifying a list with principals and with student support staff for the group of students that we need to get into the building for in-building learning as soon as possible. And our goal, I don't think it's going to happen as early as September 8th, but as early in September as possible. We will be bringing up, yesterday I provided all the principals with what 20% of their building population looks like. So our target right now is no more than 20% in the building at any given day. And that 20% should be students who need in building they're failing at remote learning. Students with IEPs, not every student with an IEP, a student with an IEP that has that remote learning is a challenge to succeed with. So that'll be the first ones into our buildings, up to 20%, and we will be doing transportation as needed. I should say at transportation, this may go back to Carrie's question too. Our busing survey showed that 60% of parents were reluctant to put their child on a bus right now and prefer to provide transportation. And I should change how I say that. 60% of the parents who responded to the survey. So that, that is different than saying 60% of parents. So it's a good question, Ron. I couldn't agree with you more as an educator that our most challenged groups need to get into the buildings as soon as possible. And by doing it at 20% of the time and practicing physical distancing and making sure that we have appropriate personal protection equipment, we can do it safely and avoid a spike that then would have us going to a full remote, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So there's one more question. When will the decision be made on sports, and will there be an official announcement so the coaches and athletes can be ready to go? So Adam, I informed the athletic director today, so I imagine she is informing her coaches, and I would say my announcement tonight is certainly an official announcement that based on those guidelines that we will begin. Those, other than, unfortunately, volleyball and cheer. And that's the last in the chat, Mr. Chairperson. So if you want to continue with finance.
Hey, I'm sorry,
Well,
Jim. Are
Yeah.
Mr. Payne and Dr. Nixon on the call tonight?
No, they are not.
They won't be giving principals reports or anything?
No.
No.
No. They are, your principals are taxed to the max right now, and I am giving them the night off. I have information from both of them that I will attempt to answer any questions that you have, but I'm giving you more of a general overview this evening.
I've got a couple topics I'd like to explore. I'm wondering if now's a good time, Tim, or when you would like me to do that.
Sure, why don't we do it and get it done? Go ahead.
Okay, Jim, can you talk a little bit about how we would be supporting staff if and when they have to take leave, either for their own health due to COVID or taking care of family members, or if they've been exposed? Can you?
Superintendent's report item number B, so I'll go to that. So we put out an announcement to staff members that anyone that was going to look for a leave of absence or an exemption or had concerns about returning the building, and they had until Friday, close the day Friday, to respond to Human Resources for what, if they were going to seek that. Basically apply for it. Didn't mean that you were going to get what you were applying for. We extended it to the end of the day Monday because part of the guidance changed based on to the updated guidance that we received from our attorney, and that was referring to those who may be seeking a leave because their child's, the town in which they reside, is operating remotely, which then would qualify them for a leave of absence. So one of the challenges that we have is, as of today, there are 86 staff members requesting a leave or an accommodation, which is, and that's not just MAU, that's 86 SUY, which is better than, that's teachers, paraeducators, and all our employees. So what we, so they had until close of day Monday, and what we began today, we broke the list down by building, and I am meeting with Nick Gall from HR and the principal from each building and reviewing those applications and the reasons. And our priority is to try to allow remote work as much as possible, but in some positions that may not be possible and they will have to take a leave of absence. One thing I should say is, I meet with the Teachers Association every week and the Support Staff Association every week. And what came out of this week's meeting is I reversed the decision that I said teachers and support staff do not have to report to work for the 24th. Remember, school doesn't begin to the 8th. We had 2 weeks of professional learning and preparation for the support staff. And based on the numbers that we're seeing, and to give us time to process those. So the buildings will open on the 24th for staff that feel they want to come in and work in the buildings, but they will work remotely if they can work remotely for those 2 weeks if they wish to. And then on the 8th, we may shift again. The Teachers Association, we're attempting to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Teachers Association on what work will look like. You should understand the teacher's contract that we all signed and have been living with for years, the description of what a workday looks like isn't valid during this emergency. So the memorandum of understanding is trying to attempt how we address those concerns. And I think we're getting there. But this gives us more time. By me saying that they can continue to work remotely the 24th through the 8th, we have more time to get that MAU worked out and what that will look like. The other way that we can accommodate people who are requesting that assistance is allowing them to work remotely until their students return to the buildings. Now, it may not be equal, but I feel it is equitable. And what I mean by that is if our first group of students that we're going to bring in are special needs students, then the first group that will be returning will be special needs teachers as needed. And it'll be difficult for our support staff then to work remotely. They're going to need to return to the buildings too. So we're processing those 86 requests, trying to be accommodating as possible, but the school district's needs come first, and then we try to accommodate our staff as much as we can and be fair to everyone. So, is that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
My next question is, will students be receiving full instruction time different from how it was delivered in the spring following the initial rollout? Will students be kept on task for the entire school day, Monday through Friday? I've had community members share with me that their students were not provided with face-to-face class time in the spring, even after we established equity. So after that 2-week period and after spring break, an example I heard was for one student, one teacher posted a 5-minute instructional video daily. One teacher posted a 5-minute instructional video weekly, and the other 2 teachers sent a few emails, but there wasn't any assigned work. Now I understand the nuance of the situation. I'm not deaf to that, in what everyone was transitioning through, but I just want to look forward and understand, should the students and parents be expecting something different in the fall? Or has there not been a conversation around that with the teachers, I guess?
The continuity of learning plan, which we have developed with expectations of what a teacher day and a student day will look like, will be given to all staff members. And the information that I've sent the boards already, you should know that basically a student day will be their starting day up to 1 o'clock every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday is a remote day for all. So there will not be any direct teacher to student learning on Wednesday. Part of the challenges, as I said about the teacher's contract, is I have to assure a duty-free lunch period and a prep period. And one of the ways that we're going to be able to, we feel that we'll be able to adhere to the contract is on that Wednesday, that asynchronous day on Wednesday, that is offset the loss of prep period time on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So the model is there is direct instruction going on, following the guidelines that would be in that. And I will share that with boards once I'm convinced that it's completely finalized, which will outline everything from the fall reopening guideline, what a teacher workday looks like, what a student day looks like, technology guidelines. It's a pretty extensive document, but it's not, with all links, including video links for teachers for how to teach remotely. We have purchased a book for all staff members, the digital teaching handbook that will be distributed to all schools for teachers, for principals to conduct book studies with their teachers on what our expectations are for remote learning. I also heard stories about what happened in spring, and we were in crisis situation and trying to get everybody forward. So I call this remote 2.0, and my expectations is it will be very different. I will point out that the public comment part of the meeting is over, so I see some people still putting things into the chat. Not sure we're going to get to that. That's the chair's call. That's public comment.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Amy,
Yeah, one more question.
go ahead. What?
Jim, I understand, and I was going to ask Dr. Nixon, but since he's not here, I'm going to ask you. I understand that the following have been removed from the high school's programming: freshman academy, freshman humanities, French courses, and Spanish 4. Can you confirm that for me? And what's the
academy has gone away, and that was a discussion. We told the board that in the spring when we were doing reductions in staff because of the 2 teachers teaching in that, 2 per subject in there. So freshman academy won't be there this year, and French 4 will be taught virtually.
But other French courses will be taught, French 1 through 3?
That I don't know. If French is going to be taught, it will be through the Vermont Virtual Learning Academy.
Just want to confirm, are there other courses that have been changed? Are honors courses still being offered?
Honors and AP courses are still being offered, yes.
And is there any change to grading or evaluations or exam periods, or has that bridge been crossed yet?
Not yet, no. I mean, if I haven't received that from the high school yet.
Yeah.
On what the grading plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. If there are no other questions from board members, we'll move on to the regular agenda, and then Jim will also continue his report when we get to the superintendent's report. But just to get some of the business out of the way, we've had the public comments. We can move on to finance. We just have to have a vote by the board members to accept the treasurer's report. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll
Very
second
good.
Leon.
Leon, thank you, Leon. Okay, all those in favor saying aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Okay, we can move on. We have a lease for the Chromebooks.
Hey, Tim, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I need to chime in. I don't think that public comment was handled correctly. Usually we have a public comment that's just deemed public comment, and I think there was, at least my understanding, and I'm seeing this in the chat, that it seemed like that public comment was just about sports. So I'd like you to consider having at least
we'll go back. We'll go back to it as when we get down to the superintendent's report. That was our plan. Okay, so we have the Chromebooks. I can't remember. Richard, did we vote on that?
Not yet.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Don't have a motion.
Okay, we need a motion to accept the Chromebooks.
So moved. You need the amount.
Renee, are you here, or do we have the amount? I've forgotten what it.
I've got it.
$1,000, but I don't know the exact amount.
Was that budgeted?
The amount is $336,068. The funding sources were listed on the information sheet for both the middle school and the high school.
And I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Can I tell
Opposed or-
you, on the Chromebooks, the board chair approved the purchase on July
Right.
7th, but legal counsel confirmed that board action didn't authorize the chair or vice chair to enter it, so that's why you're re-voting it tonight. We're voting on.
Because we did make a motion that was passed by that the chair or the vice chair could approve those things, so we're doing it twice. But anyway, it has been approved, we can move on then. Okay, we have a consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second it, Leon.
Leon, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay, now we're down at the superintendent's report. We've got a number of different areas of the superintendent's report. As he goes through a certain area, we will then open the chat room for people that have questions. And if we get through the superintendent's report and there are still questions from the public, we'll address them at that time. Hopefully, during his report, some of the questions will be answered. Okay, Jim.
I'm just trying to deal with Jackie Kelly. I'm trying to unmute her. Jackie, it says ask to unmute, and I'm hitting that. It seems like you're controlling the mute. Oh, looks like she's coming back in again. Hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. I went to my phone.
All right, Jim?
Yep.
Are you going to keep on with your report then, the other areas that were outlined in the agenda?
I'm gonna answer some of the, I mean, the school start plan I've already talked about, but I'll answer some of the questions. Staff attendance guidelines, I already talked about from Carrie's, no, it was Amy's question, but I'll go to the questions first. We've got no communication or schedules yet for our kids, and it's just weeks before school starts. There's been rumors of course, so I address what courses won't be there. So I will, and then I will ask both middle school and high school principals when those will be sent out. I don't have that answer here tonight, but I will press on them that has to happen. I know that the high school master schedule was not completed till last week. They were struggling with that for most of the month of August, so I'm going to say that that's certainly impactful on why that was not done. So the standards of practice for online instruction, absolutely. That's what's in the continuity of learning plan that has been developed, and that is going to be given to all teachers and principals and expected to be adhered to. And because I'll go back to the standards weren't there in the spring as we were in crisis situation, and we were possibly all over the place in the spring. So that's why there is a continuity of learning plan with expectations that is, I'd say it's finished, but not quite ready to share yet. The plan was formulated by the administration. Let me tell you how this plan came about. There's probably a team of 44 people that worked on what the plan was. There was a team for the elementary school, a team for the high school. There was a team for athletics. And then there was a subset from all of that worked with the administration to form what the entry plan for school would look like. And then I made my decision based on some of the following points. One, I can't transport everybody to school at this time. I can't put more than 12 students on a bus at a time, considering the guidance that is currently in place. You heard my statement for how many staff members may not be in school for the start of school, or that we may not have their services. So until we know what we're going to have, I felt we could not begin in-building education on September 8th. I am still concerned whether we have enough personal protection equipment for everyone, and masks, shields. We have enough reusable masks to give every staff member 5 masks to begin with, and we have purchased 1 face shield for every staff member, which is their option to wear them. Face shield will not be required. We have a number of disposable masks that we have purchased and have in place. Students will be expected to bring their own mask to school, but if we have to give one out when they come without one, then that's what the disposable masks are there for. We have a COVID-19 coordinator who is Ashley Walker, our school nurse, who provides us with the guidance, while I also receive it from the Vermont Department of Health on everything from what constitutes a mask, what's acceptable for a mask. So the concern about whether we have enough personal protection equipment is one of the other reasons that I use to determine that we will remain remote to begin the year. The inability to physically distance all our students, particularly at the middle school, the high school, and Molly Stark Elementary School, because of the size of the student body in those buildings. As we worked out different layout scenarios in classrooms, it didn't appear that we could be in building. And the high school plan, by the way, for hybrid learning when it begins, and this is the middle school plan, because I misspoke, it was the elementary that would be in building Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Because the amount of students, if the current distancing guidance stays in place, the middle and high school will be 2 days in building learning and 3 days remote. And they'll alternate. 50% of them will be there Monday, Tuesday, and 50% will be there Thursday, Friday. And that deals with the difficulty of the physical distancing requirement in the small buildings. And the third, and this goes into superintendent reports number C, building ventilation review. So Efficiency Vermont put out that they have $6 million to help a grant to help schools improve ventilation. So we had an engineer come in, tour all the buildings, all of our buildings, and write a report that we submitted to Efficiency Vermont. And there are deficiencies in the mechanical ventilation system at the high school and middle school that hopefully we can address with money from Efficiency Vermont. And none of that is going to be able to be done by September 8th. So we could bring people in and open windows, but as the weather starts to turn, that may be not a desirable way to deal with building ventilation. Your buildings are old. Even your middle school has ventilation issues. We think of it as a new building, but it's not. But I have challenges at the high school that need to be addressed, particularly in building isolation rooms that are required should a staff member or student be ill while we're there. So those are all contributing factors on why we're there. Again, when can we expect schedules from students? I will address that with both principals tomorrow. Will parents be afforded a copy of the expectations outlined in the continuing learning plan? Yes, there will be a guide that is going out to parents also. And I don't know the answer to will there be French instruction at all levels this year. I do know that For those students that were continuing on French, it was going to be through the Vermont Virtual Learning Academy, but I have copied all these questions, and I'm going to ask the principal to address these in a communication to parents directly from the principal, and then I'll give that expectation from the superintendent to him.
Jim, can you talk a little bit more about the ventilation, like what the, just some details on what you think like the evaluation is going to look like and a possible remedy timeline, or if you don't have that information, it's fine. I'm just
Jackie, I keep trying to unmute you. I don't know what the issue is from your end. I keep.
I didn't ask the question. Somebody else did.
That was it. That was Amy. That was Amy.
No, Jackie, I got a text from you right now that said that you can't vote. You're muted.
That was a few minutes ago before I switched.
All right.
Okay.
Well, it just came now.
Okay.
So ventilation for the high school. I sent you all the ventilation study. I sent you the report.
Yeah.
But do you, in terms of like, what happens next?
Well, I can tell you that the Efficiency Vermont rejected the report that I gave you, saying that they didn't want a report from the engineer. They want a specific report that, like have a vendor come into the building, tour the building, like something, any of our mechanical contractors who have used tour the buildings with our facilities managers and give us low-cost fixes to ventilation that Efficiency Vermont may be willing to co-fund up to 50%. So we're back to the drawing board with that. That phone call from Efficiency Vermont came on Thursday or Friday of last week. So Renee Gordon is facilitating with our facility managers to tour the building with vendors to see what can be done to bring more fresh air into our buildings, particularly as we enter the heating system. I can give you an example of one that, from what I read in the report, if you saw that, the gymnasium has 2 exhaust fans that we're told have not operated for many years. In fact, the air intakes have been blocked. Typically when we see something like that happens, it's in the well-intended but misguided belief that we're saving energy by keeping cold air coming into the building, but what we're really doing is keeping fresh air from coming into the building. So we're back to doing a re-inspection of all buildings to get back into the queue with Efficiency Vermont for funding. And they did point out that there's 415 schools going for a very inadequate $6 million that, if you divide it up by 8 schools, it comes up to about $14,000 per school. So.
Okay. Jim, can we open it up again to general public comments?
I've been answering the questions. I think so. The only one that I haven't addressed is when can we expect said communication from the principal with the answers to our questions. I'll speak to the principal tomorrow morning and ask him to send it out. If the schedules are done, I don't know if the schedules are done because I know that the master schedule was just completed.
Okay. Are there,
as soon as possible.
just appealing to the public that are listening that if you do have questions for Jim or the board, this is the time to bring them to his or our attention. Don't want to leave anybody out.
Tim, how should people make themselves known? Can they unmute themselves or?
No, they can type their answer right into the chat and I can read it.
I mean, they might want to speak themselves, so maybe they could just let you know.
Okay, they could put that in the note in the chat. We'll give people a few minutes to get going. While we're waiting for people to respond, there is another item that was brought to our attention by the School Board Association, in that the boards really need to address how they want the decisions to be made concerning differences in what's happening. We have one of two choices. We can either give the superintendent our approval to make decisions, or we can require that all decisions that would be effective, Jim has the wording of this, which he can read, will be made through the board. It is my understanding that the elementary schools have approved the position that the superintendent can make those decisions, and the MAU board now must make that decision. Jim, do you have the motion there?
It's a delegation of authority during the pandemic, which, your policy would probably already give me most of these this authority anyways. I don't know, Leon could answer this, whether he feels this is necessary, but our attorney does feel it's necessary. Basically, it authorizes me, if the pandemic spikes again, I have the ability to close a school. I have, in these powers expire as soon as the governor says the state of emergency is over. So it's called the delegation of authority during the state of emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic. I believe the language was included in your packet. And the policy stays in effect for the duration of the state of emergency and shall terminate automatically when the state of emergency is lifted.
Okay.
No, this is Leon. I'm saying Jim said it just right. So all the board needs to do is just vote. It's just like a vote of confidence to allow this to happen under these special situations, because everybody has so much concern. But if the board, let him know the board is wanting him to go ahead and make those decisions and inform us as they happen.
Very good. Does anybody else have any questions on that motion? If not, then
I have a question. I'm just
Sure.
curious. What would cause that to be lifted then? If we allow it, then what specifically would have to happen for that to be lifted? You said the state of emergency.
right, would have to be lifted.
Okay.
That's my
It
understanding.
would be lifted automatically when the state of emergency is declared over by the governor.
So to clarify, what exactly is changing by this? I'm just not clear.
You have it in your
Nothing really. Go ahead.
right? The whole version was in the packet that outlines the implementation and communication. It also requires me to meet with you monthly, which we do anyways, to advise you of any actions I have taken. And I cannot violate any existing district policies. They have to be consistent with whatever I do has to be consistent with district policies. This came from your association and our attorneys that said to try and generate policies to do this will take months of, what's it take us? On a good round, 6 months to get a policy approved. So this delegates that authority to the superintendent for the duration.
Are there any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to excuse me? Have a motion?
Yeah, I didn't.
Yes, I move that. Leon.
Second it. Do we have a second? Is there any further discussion?
Does this mean that the superintendent can spend money without our approval?
No, I don't.
No.
That's okay. Thank you.
It's about directing staff assignments, closing a school in an emergency, access to district school grounds and buildings directed by the superintendent, but not to, I'm still limited by what the policies goes in by your budget.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. That takes care of that.
Hold on, I'm
are
sorry, I
there-
abstained from that.
Okay, we have one abstention. Richard, did you get that? I assume you got that.
Yeah, I
Jim,
just didn't have
what-
time to read it. I didn't have time to read it, so I can't vote on something I didn't read.
Well, all right, that's fine. We can then take a look. One thing, we may have to have some special meetings of the board if something comes up that Jim feels that he needs our direction or at least our approval, and it would make a significant change in either policies or what's happening. We will call a special board meeting to address that issue. And we will also have our regularly scheduled board meetings on the third Wednesday of each month at 7:00. And hopefully soon we can have a regular meeting rather than a Zoom meeting. I'm not really very knowledgeable on the Zoom thing, but it certainly is a pain in the neck to try to focus in and not be able to and have to go to the phone. So hopefully we can get some of those details worked out. And if we do have to have another Zoom meeting, it will go a little more smoothly. Also at this time, I'd like to thank Jim and the administration for doing a very difficult job. In many ways, as Dave Durfee had mentioned at one point, we're glad I don't have to make those decisions every day, because the situations seem to change radically within hours of one another, with one change hourly. And what you think is the right decision to make at 1:00, you may find by 6:00 something has changed and it can't be done. So many of the decisions that have to be made in a critical time period. And we certainly thank the administration and all those people who have worked hard to make sure that those policies and those decisions are made and implemented.
Can I interrupt for just a second? So,
Excuse me?
This is Steve Anderson. I'd like to interrupt for just a second to follow that up. You were thanking them
Sure.
for the decisions that have been made. We're kind of confused as to what those decisions may have been. We're not seeing really much that's been decided, and we haven't gotten really any direction as to what the school year is going to look like. What are the decisions that you're thanking him and congratulating him for?
Well, what we're saying is when the school year will begin, what part of the year will be done remotely, what part will be done in school, in terms of the scheduling and things, that is going to be coming out. The principals, as I understand it, are working on that, and they'll be sent to the students soon. We're still trying to work out the staffing issues, which is a difficult thing, and it has not been completely done yet. So some of the decisions that will have to be made are going to be determined by the situation that is agreed upon between the administration and the association. But there are many things that have been done.
What is the role of the board in overseeing the decisions that are still to come? The decisions that the parents that we've discussed this with have significant concerns about the quality of education that's going to be provided this year. We've tried to reach out to many of the administrators and have been unsuccessful, and they also didn't come to today's meeting. So I think we're relying on the board and their oversight capacity to make sure that a quality education is provided to the children. Can anyone speak to what the board's actions might be if there's continued confusion and lack of action? Thanks.
Okay. Anybody like to address that? Well, as the chair, I can tell you that the board is extremely interested, obviously, in providing the best possible education opportunity for our kids that we can. And like all boards, we have to rely on our administration to be able to implement and sponsor the programs that they feel are able to be instituted within the schools. It's the board's responsibility to take a look at those to see if they are being if in fact they are being managed well and being implemented. All I can tell you is that, you know, we are kept in touch by the superintendent, and that we will be having our monthly meetings, and we'll have meetings more often if situations arise where we have concerns about whether the educational program is meeting the standards that we'd like to see. Anybody else like to chime in?
I would, Jackie Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm a former teacher, and I'd be glad to be called if you have some concerns, and I would pass that on to board members and to the superintendent if you want some anonymity. I can't answer for the board. We could only answer as a board, as you know, because of the open meeting laws. But you can certainly contact us and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, or I'd like to see more of this or more of that. But understand, too, that this is a new world. None of us really know all the answers to it. We're accepting guidance from the state, and the state is dictating a lot of what we do. We have certain kind of creative ways to implement it, but we're not positive it will be the best thing for our students until we get back to the so-called new normal. But as a former teacher, I can tell you that this would be the hardest thing I'd ever have to do. And I've taught classes for universities online and thought that was easy. But when you have to teach first to third grade children online, that is a big challenge. And I don't have the answers, and I'm sure the superintendent doesn't have the answers, but I know our superintendent well, and I know that he will personally visit some of these classrooms when they're started. He will, I don't know if you can, Jim, but he can tune into some of their classes online. So ask your questions, and we'll see what we can do.
So I will say I've copied every question that is in the chat, and I will begin addressing them tomorrow with the principals, and I'm committed to getting answers to all of you I've copied every question that is in the chat.
I'd like to say that I appreciate what Jackie was saying, but we have chairs of the education committee, finance, policy, and so forth along that line, that any information that they are concerned about that fall under those categories should be forwarded to those chairs so that they can get it to Tim or get it to Jim or get it to the school to be able to understand what it is that somebody's speaking to in the contents of everyone, and not have someone new come in. So Jackie was saying that she'll take it if somebody wants to send it to her. I prefer that people send things to the chairs or send it to the principal if they're concerned, and we'll get it.
Thank you, Leon and Jackie. Anybody else like to chime in? I can.
May I ask a question from the press, sir?
Sure.
I guess one of the questions I have, looking at some of the chats and stuff, and I think the question is when is it going to be released in terms of what the schedules and stuff? I think is because usually they come out a couple of weeks before school actually starts in a normal sense, right? I don't usually cover the school, so I'm really not sure. But I'm just wondering, I think that maybe one of the concerns is that, you know, when September 8th comes, what's the plan in terms of, okay, my kid goes to, you know.
Adam, I can tell you what I do know, that the master schedule was completed just last week, and all principals back to school letters are ready to go and will go out on Monday the 24th that will contain that information. We wanted to send so that we're consistent with parents. Some principals' letters and back to school instructions are already ready. Some were still being finalized. So the determination was made to hold off so that they all go out on the 24th. Though I have an all principal meeting tomorrow, so we could go out earlier, but the deadline we first put was the 24th so that all parents would get it at the same time, regardless of what grade your child was in.
Okay, that's terrific. Yeah, I think that maybe one of the concerns of some of the parents, I think, is, you know, what's going to happen, you know, when it comes to the 8th, and how, you know, what are we going to know before that? So I think that's right on. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Once again, I want to emphasize what Jackie and Leon both said, in that there are still a lot of unanswered questions that we'll have to address in the near future. As Jim has pointed out, we're still not sure how many of our staff are going to be returning, and that will be a real consideration as we plan things. And one of the things that the administration will be working on is implementing programs that we can actually support with the staff that we have available. But again, if members of the community have questions, concerns, I certainly would encourage you to let board members, let the superintendent, let the principals know, and we will certainly do what we can to answer your questions. Jim?
Yeah.
Do you have any other?
Just that we'll continue to send guidance to families every Friday at noontime, like we do, and we also send it every Friday to staff too. So there's communication from us every Friday. But as I said, I've read your chats, I've heard the questions. We'll get to those too.
Very good. Are there any other issues that should be brought before this board?
So I will say, I'm looking at this, it's not acceptable at this time to know how many of your staff are not returning. That should have already been requested. You know, we work in a unionized environment, and everyone has protections by that union, and I have to work by what's contained in those contracts. And also by the state guidance about who is eligible for leave of absences under the pandemic rules and under the Family Cares Act. So those are all things that are contributing. It's not alone my decision.
Right. Very good. And once again, are there any other issues that should be brought before this board, or are there any other issues from the community that would any members of the community would like to have the board address an issue? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move that.
Executive session?
Not required.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, do you have a second to the motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. Thank you, everybody. Stay well.